condition that Abraham and Sarah was in before he even made the promise to Abraham. He knew that Abraham was a man who was considered too old to even produce. He knew that Sarah was a woman who was considered too old for her womb to give birth. And yet, tell somebody, and yet, God is about to give you an and yet in your life. It looks bad, but and yet. It's dry right now, but and yet. Ain't no money coming in, but and yet. I lost my job, but and yet. My health is bothering me, but and yet. My kids is acting up, and yet. I got issues on top of issues, and yet. God knew that Abraham was too old to produce, and Sarah's womb was too old to give birth. And yet, and yet God took what was old and what was barren, and he brought forth a seed out of them. God took what was old and what was barren, and he brought forth a seed out of them. What I'm trying to say to you is that I don't care how old, how dry, how devastating, how bad, or how challenging, or how desolate your condition is. It's the type of mess that God can create a miracle out